I talked to the financial commentator Taha Arvas about Turkey's struggling economy.
This includes Turkey, this includes all other countries that we can talk about. The European Union has seen its currency devalue by 6% since the beginning of the year. That's the lowest it's been in a year. So these mean that there are choppy waters globally for the economy. That's definitely true. And there will be choppy waters for Turkey. There are now, and there will be in the future. So I think what the thinking behind the early elections was to get a refreshed mandate from the people before going into uncharted waters. Because not only are these uncharted waters for Turkey, but this is the first time the United States' labor participation rate has been this low in over 40 years. The interest rates haven't been this high in over 15 years. So we're in uncharted waters, and we'll see what happens.
I think it was one of Bill Clinton's advisors who wrote that when it comes to elections, what people really care about and what motivates them to vote is the economy stupid. That's what really matters, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the reason why this government was seated to begin with 16 years ago was the economy, and that's the reason why if they win this time, it will be because of the economy. People ultimately vote with their pocketbooks. If you can't afford to pay your rent or to put food on the table, you will ask for change politically. And so if the people believe that change is better for the country, that's what they'll get. If they don't believe that, then they'll re-elect the current government and the president.
Okay, so in a couple of hours, the ministers get behind their desks to start work. What's in the in-tray as far as the economy is concerned?
There are many things that they need to do. The first thing I think that they need to do, that the government has talked about and even the opposition has talked about, are reforms that have, as of yet, have not been put in place. Economic reforms, liberalizations in the economy, bringing it closer to the norms that are common in the United States, the European Union, etc. So this will be a broader goal. And they'll have specific mandates now to move towards those things. For example, Turkey's dependence on foreign imports is a huge part of the current economic crisis. So Turkey is an importer of energy. Almost 100% of its energy is imported. So Turkey will have to look for ways to get around that. If the federal funds rate goes to 4%, then the US dollar will continue to appreciate, and dollar-denominated commodities like oil, like gas, will be more expensive. So Turkey needs to come up with some way to either use more renewable technology, more renewable energy, and invest in technologies. Similarly, there are things that Turkey imports that they could be producing domestically, that they haven't been doing because it wasn't necessary until this point, because Turkey could afford it. But if there is a prolonged period of dollar appreciation, then imports will be more expensive. And Turkey needs to be focusing on how to be competitive globally with those imports so that they can produce them domestically if possible. The United States being the leader globally economically, and everyone else has to play catch up with that. I mean, you saw the G7 summit a couple days ago. I mean, when in recent memory has a US president, broken with his allies, Canada, Germany, France, the UK, literally insulted them at a meeting. And the German chancellor has said, we will no longer be dependent on the United States for our policies. That's a seismic shift in global politics. So that affects Turkey, that affects Australia, the UK, China, Russia. The entire world is affected by that. So every politician is playing a game with moving parts, and they need to play catch up if they want their country to succeed. And that's no different than for Turkey than it is for any other country.
If you were a betting man, how long will it be before Turkey is forced to increase interest rates again?
I mean, interest rates have already risen by 500 basis points in the last few months here. If I were a betting man, I don't think the interest rates in the United States can continue to increase at this pace without having global fallout. So Turkey is going to have to come up with a solution. Increasing interest rates is the easy way out always. But ultimately, if you're borrowing at 20% interest rates, which Turkish companies are currently doing, what percentage do you have to be making to make up for that? I mean, you can raise interest rates to 30%. You can, the sky is the limit. But at some point, the returns of those increases just drop off. You've reached the threshold at which they no longer do any good. I'm not convinced that Turkey is there yet necessarily, but I'm not also convinced increasing interest rates alone will do anything. More important than increasing interest rates would be closer relationships with Turkey's European allies, or the United States, in fact, increasing trade between these countries, really solving the Syria debacle. I mean, we still have a country on Turkey's borders that has an active war. I mean, in the north, the Ukraine and Russia are still going at it. I mean, we have problems. Turkey's border, our country to the west, Greece, has an economy that's 20% smaller than it was 10 years ago. So we're in Turkey's in a very rough neighborhood, and solving any one of these problems that I talked about would be much better for Turkey than a simple interest rate increase would be. Across the board, emerging markets will have depreciation. Turkey's problem has been, and it has been for many years, is it has a very high beta. So that means that when the economy is good, when the global economy is good, Turkey is doing better than the world. But when it's bad, it's doing worse. So that effect needs to be it needs to be kind of quelled a little. I'm not sure how policymakers will do that, but it's a difficult job. I mean, if it were easy, then anyone would want to do it. So I don't envy the position of any of the policymakers. It's certainly going to be difficult. And let's hope they get it right for Turkey's sake.